Hey everybody, David Nagel. Welcome back to part 2 of Building the Business of Your Dreams. This is our summer series. Now, we left you with a pretty important question on number 1, and that's, what do you want? Now, here's what I want to say about that, because what I think is very important about the idea of what you want is to, as you begin to think about what it is, and remember what I said, I don't care if the thing that you want is small at first, right? It'll grow. When I first started thinking about what I wanted, I definitely started coming from a place of what I didn't want. And that was because I was broke and I worked a job that I absolutely hated. But I didn't know where to go. I did not know what was in front of my life at that point. All I knew was that I needed to do something different so that I could make enough money where my family wasn't suffering. So I was coming from this place. Well, I had gotten a hold of, I don't know what it was. I honestly don't remember where it came from. But it was some kind of pamphlet about setting goals. And one of the instructions in there was write down 101 goals that you would love to accomplish in your life. And while I understand why they picked that number, right? The idea is that you could have anything that you want. You know, don't stop at 100, keep going, your life doesn't end till it ends, that type of an idea. I couldn't hardly think of but a couple of things, and some of them really weren't goals. I'll tell you what I wanted. The number one thing that I wanted was to be able to buy my family a house. We were living in one ratty apartment after another. And my first dream was, I got to get my family into a house because I just can't, I'm not a good husband. I'm not a good father. I'm just, I'm really being a loser here. So that was my number one thing. I wanted to get into a house. Now, it's true that wasn't just for me. That was for the whole family. But it was the number one thing that I wanted. The second thing that I wanted, because the instructions basically were, pick things that only you want. Well, I couldn't do that in the moment because I had a family, I had responsibilities. That was important. But on the second one, I did. I grew up fishing and hunting in Wisconsin. I'm from Chicago, and when my parents were married, we used to spend our summers up in Wisconsin fishing. And I loved it. I absolutely loved fishing. So the idea, when we were little, we couldn't afford a boat. We always had to rent some little rinky-dink boat or go in somebody else's boat. And when I was a little kid, I used to say to myself, I can't wait till I can grow up and make enough money to have my own boat. So my second goal was that I wanted a boat for myself. And I'm thinking at the time, man, it's going to take me 20 years to accomplish this boat thing, right? Because I thought, there's the houses. I mean, how long is it going to take me to get a house? I couldn't pay my bills with what I was doing. And then the third one was like, I was starting to think, well, maybe I should find a place where I want to retire someday, right? And I'm in my early 20s when I'm thinking this. Have no idea why. But that's what was kind of consuming my mind. So there weren't a lot of goals there, and they really weren't big at all. I mean, when I mean house, I wasn't talking about some gigantic mansion or, anything. It was a nice place to live in a decent neighborhood. That's what I was looking for at that time. So it doesn't matter where you start. What's important to you? Now, here's the thing though, it does need to be tangible, okay? Don't say my goal is to be more happy, right? Or my goal is to not be depressed. It needs to be something that's tangible. Everything that we do here at Life Is Now at my company will help you be more happy and become not depressed. But in order to move in those directions, we need to work on things that are measurable, because the only way that we actually manifest the measurable things in our life is by getting our mindset straight in order to do so. And a byproduct of that is that you're happy, you're excited, you love your life, you're doing things that are amazing to you, right? So you're not going to find yourself being emotionally unstable after you go through the processes that I'm going to share with you. So start where you are. Think about what you want. Now, the second piece of this is that we have to have some version of I can do it. So the title of our second session here is The Excuses That Hold You Back. And the reason that I say excuses is because in the world that I live in and the people that I help, we have a rule. In order for you to live your dream, in order for us to work together, for you to be able to accomplish amazing things, you have to do something that most people aren't willing to do. The first few things that I'm going to ask you to do, I'm not going to lie, for many of you, they're going to be tough. And I'm here with you to help you move through them. We can answer questions, can do whatever to help you move through it. I can explain more, I can teach more on something, you guys just let me know, but they're not easy. And it's almost as if there's a couple of barriers in the very beginning that kind of weed all the people that don't want it that bad out. And the first one is responsibility. Responsibility. Because most people don't take responsibility. What do? They blame. They blame. They blame themselves, their situation, what they don't have, what they can't have, problems that they have. They blame it on other people, places, and things, and they don't take responsibility for the situation that they're in. And one of the things that kind of gets tight in there with that idea is like, but how can I be responsible for things that other people have done to me? Or what if I was born disabled or challenged in some way? Or what if I had a child that was disabled or challenged in some way? I have to be responsible for that? No, you're not responsible for that, but you're responsible to that in what you can do to make your life or the life of anybody else that's having a challenge better, because you can. The problem that we have is that we develop a myriad of excuses in our mind. Now, let's go over to our friend the stick person again and look at how this actually works. Excuses come, you should write this down. Excuses come from the belief that you can't do it, okay? So that's where it starts. I can't. Now, I'm going to put a question mark under it because where did I can't come from? It could be something that you heard. It could be something that was kind of drilled into your mind. It could be something that you heard other people talk about their situations and their problems and their things that they needed to change. It could come from the idea that you attempted to do something and failed. There's a lot of different places that this can come from. But one of the places that it comes from is called blame. And blame is when people have results in their life that obviously they don't like, right? And they don't actually know how to change those results. So remember what I said in the first part of this? I said one of the interesting things about human beings and the programming that we get when we're first born is meaning. Meaning. Whoop. We basically get constantly programmed by the meaning that other people give to every single thing in their life, and they teach that to us. So the idea of blaming or not being responsible for yourself and what's in your life, that's not natural for a human being. It's absolutely not natural. You were taught that. You see, little kids, if you look at really little kids, when they're ambitious, when they're full of energy, when they're exploring life, they don't have excuses about why they can't do something. Matter of fact, they want to do all kinds of things that they can't do at that age. But what they don't do is make excuses until somebody teaches them to make excuses. Generally, we hear excuses, they're caused by a couple things. One, a little child starts asking mom or dad for certain things and the parents telling them no. And the reason that they tell them no is because we can't. We can't do that. We can't afford that. We can't do it. You can't do it, whatever. So it's a direct interaction between whatever that child desires and the fact that the people in authority around that child are going, you can't do it or we can't do it. That's one. Second is observing other people as we're little children, observing people in our life that have issues in their life, and we hear conversation, we hear sidebar, right? They can't. We hear them say they can't, right? I remember when I was growing up, my grandmother smoked. And everybody was always on her about quitting smoking. Every time, what came out of her mouth next was, I can't. She died a smoker, okay? She developed the belief in her mind that she couldn't do something. So when you develop the belief in your mind that you can't do something, from all of these outside meanings, you become programmed with excuses. Excuses are the rationalizations that you create around the reasons why you can't do something, but they have no basis in truth. They have basis in fiction, they have basis in fear, they have basis in worry, in doubt, they have big basis in superstition for a lot of people. Actually, superstition is a huge thing. I don't have a whole lot of time to go into it here because it would actually take me a couple hours to cover it. But I remember way back in the day when I first started reading books, one of the first books on success that I got a hold of, like so many people, was Think and Grow Rich. And Napoleon Hill, who was the author of that book, literally devoted a good chunk of time in there to explaining that superstitious was one of the habits that people actually had that is a cause of failure. And I thought to myself when I read it, like, really? Seriously? Because when I was thinking of superstition, like there's something wrong, the number 13, or don't walk under a ladder, or, don't open an umbrella in a house, that kind of stuff. And he was talking about that kind of stuff, but he was also talking about superstition like all successful people are jerks. They're not nice people. Everybody that has all the money is keeping the people that don't have money from actually getting any money, and on and on and on and on this goes. And I came to realize that we literally are filled with all kinds of superstition that, again, is passed down from the people that were around. So we have all of these meanings and these reasons and these superstitions and these fears and these attitudes about life and success and failure that we turn into excuses, because what a human being needs to do for whatever reason is that when they make a statement, they usually have some kind of reasoning behind the statement. Doesn't mean the reasoning's true, but they have to have some kind of reason behind the statement in their mind, because otherwise, why would they say something? Why would they actually make that statement? With the exception of little bitty kids, because they're following their impulsiveness in life, right? They're following what they're led to, what excites them, what turns them on, what's like lighting up their mind. Little kids don't make excuses for stuff like that, so they don't have that built into their subconscious yet. But give them a few years, and it'll start building. It definitely will start building. So the idea of what is it that holds us back when we know what we want, because we have to ask ourselves another question. We're going to ask a lot of questions, but questions lead us to the answer. What is the truth? What is the truth? I went through a lot of things when I was growing up that were extremely contradicting, right? Like, I went to school, I was born in the mid-60s, so there was, the Kennedy assassination, Martin Luther King assassination, the Vietnam War, all kinds of conflict that was going on in the United States and abroad. I was given a religious education based on the Christian upbringing that we had, but I also saw everything that conflicted with those ideas in the real world, and it created conflicts inside of myself. And I kept asking myself, what is the truth? What is the truth? Because obviously there was a truth, and it seemed to me like people just weren't getting it, or they didn't know, or we weren't being taught it. Somebody's got to be wrong here. Somebody's got to be right. And it became a quest for me in my life. It did get put down a little bit when I was a teenager. Like, I got kind of sidetracked because I was kind of growing up on the streets of Chicago, and it was more about survival and, of course, having a good time like every teenager wants to do. But then as soon as I started having problems again as a young adult, that idea of truth came in hard and fast again. Like, what is the truth? And I began focusing on, I just want to find the truth. I had a major breakthrough after losing everything. It tripled my income in 30 days after a small attitude change a small mindset change inside of myself. I was so floored by the idea that that could actually happen that I said, I got to know what this is. How is it that this happened? I didn't believe in luck. That was one of the superstition things. There is no such thing as luck. Luck is a word to describe the unknown cause and effect of something. That's all that is. So you can apply it to anything, but it doesn't mean that there is a thing that has no cause and effect there. And luck is not a cause in and of itself. It's just a word to describe the unknown. But I was looking for a truth, and I built a company on the idea of follow the truth. What the single question that I teach business owners to ask in every problem, first question, what is the truth? What is the truth about what I'm looking at here? What is the truth about what I'm dealing with? Because if I'm not looking at the truth, I'm immediately going to go into an excuse or a meaning that I've cultivated to hold myself back in some kind of situation. And then we get into the I can'ts again. The truth is, there's a solution to every problem. That's the truth. The truth is that there's an abundance of everything that we need. The truth is, if you don't have something, your ability to get that, to turn that situation around, is instantaneous if you know how to think about it. That means that if you don't have money and you have a lot of debt and you're stuck, once you understand how to turn it around, you can instantly turn it around. That was one of the things that floored me, absolutely floored me in life, that was real. And then as I began to understand life in and of itself, it all began to make sense, because the idea would be that if there wasn't this overarching truth over life, and the truth of that truth is called more life. It's something we call more life. The idea that all life is moving toward more life. That's what it wants. Even if it's doing something destructive, by the way, it does have a lot to do with how our mind is programmed, but it's always in advancement. So if it's already in advancement, that means that whatever it needs to advance would have to be here, or life would contradict itself and cease to exist. Now, think about that. You might want to listen to that part again several times, but really think about it. We're created to live, we're created to succeed. In order to do that, the things that we need to do that have to be here. Why would we live in a creation that needs all these things, but then they're not here? Okay? They're all here, including the money. Every excuse, every reason that you give yourself for not being able to do something, the reason to do it is here. The way to do it is here. The how to do it is here. The resources to do it are here. The money to do it is here. But like I said, there's two places that we get tripped up. The first one is responsibility, and we get stuck in the I can't. So in order to change that, this is the change. Here's the directive to change it. I am now going to take responsibility for everything that I think, everything that I feel, everything that I do, and every result that I get in my life. That needs to be your mantra. Now, don't confuse responsibility with blame. This has nothing to do with judgment. This has nothing to do with saying that you're a bad person or shaming you or guilting you. This has to do with empowerment. You have all the power there is in the world locked up inside of yourself. No question about it. If there's anything that we know about human beings with everything that we've done, is we have that power inside of ourselves. But what happens is that when we grow up and we believe that we can't, or we give bogus meanings to things, we give that power away. We give it away to our results. We give it away to circumstances. We give it away to our environment. We give it away to people. We give it away to places, and we give it away to things. Unbeknownst to what we're even doing. We don't even realize what we're doing. Because think about it like this. If I blame something else on the situation that I'm in order for me to change the situation, whatever I'm blaming it on has to change. And if there's anything that we know, that doesn't happen. We live in a world that has gone so flippin' crazy over this idea, and it keeps breeding the idea of victimization, and almost as if it's a thing to become in our world. And all it does is it takes the power away from the people. Beware of anybody that encourages you to be a victim and not to take responsibility, because they're completely manipulating you when they do that. Why do I say this? because you and only you have the power to change your life. It doesn't matter what happened in the past. You can't change that. But what you can do is start thinking about what you want to create now and in the future. You have the ability to do that, and you have the ability to create it. There is not a damn thing out there in the world that can keep you from doing what you determine and decide to do. So number one is responsibility. You must accept responsibility. And that can be scary. I was scared to death when I first did it. I didn't know what it meant. Nobody told me not to bring the judgment part in there, so I was beating myself up like crazy over what I did. I felt humiliated as a husband. I felt humiliated as a father. I wasn't living up to my potential at all. I didn't know what to do with it, but I did know that I had to take responsibility for my situation, or I was never going to change it, because I needed to take my power back. As long as I was blaming others, I had no power to change anything in my life. So that was it. No more blaming others. I'm going to take it back, and I'm going to do whatever is necessary in order for me to move in this direction so I could buy the house and various other things in my life. Number two is money and your ability and willingness to spend money. Now, why do I say that this is number two? First is responsibility, second is money. Because you're never going to be able to get the resources that you need to fully move you forward unless you buy them. Success is about something that's very specific in all of life, including nature. And that is, in order to be successful, you have to be willing to give up something of a lower nature to gain something of a higher nature. When we're talking about money, we're talking about ourselves, okay? We're talking about time, and we're talking about space. Now, what does this mean? What this means is that the moment that I decide that I want to do something different in my life, I am going to step into time and space, right? So that's an Einstein thing. You can't have one without the other. The moment that you set a time, you also create the space. In other words, if I set a goal to do something on the calendar, I'm creating a space between now and then. The key is, what am I going to fill that space up with in order to accomplish the goal? I'm creating a vacuum in which I can literally create as a human being. Did you know that? Did you know that you've got the God-given ability to be able to create and create your life the way that you want it? If you doubt that, stop for a moment and just look at all the things that are around you right now that are created by human beings. And ask yourself this question: where did they come from? Where did they come from? They didn't just show up. Everything that you see that was created by human beings first had to be an image in their mind. And what did I say on the first episode of this? You have to engage your imagination to see what you want. Whatever you can imagine, you can have. And part of the reason for that is you can't imagine anything that doesn't exist in the universe, right? In other words, the knowledge to create anything in your life that you want is already here, or you couldn't imagine it. And it's already here, or you couldn't desire it. Desire is about being in harmony with the thing that you're supposed to be doing or creating in your life. However, I only have 24 hours in a day, and I only have 7 days in a week. There is no more time. There is no more time. Yet, there are millions of different results that people have. So if you look at an uber successful person, like some of the most successful people in the world, right? Versus you, they don't have any more time than we have. Nobody has any more time than anybody else. So we have to understand, what do we need to change within the time frame that we're doing things every day in order to get a different result. It's very important that we start thinking this way, because as far from a use value, time is one of the most valuable things that you have, and it does have a limit to it, right? It has constraints around the idea. You can't stretch your day. You can only get so much done in that cycle of time. And you can't expand your space. You can only get so much done in there. So successful people know something that unsuccessful people don't know, and that is the only way to gain more success is to learn the law and the art of leverage. Leverage means you're leveraging knowledge, time, space, money, information, or people in order to expand the results that you want to get for yourself. Now, it doesn't matter where you start. In the first 24 hours that you're starting, it's already completely filled. Even if you're not doing anything, it's filled with something. If I'm going to add something to it, like watching this podcast or listening to things or reading things that are going to take me to the ability to move forward in the desire that I want in my life, I have to give up the time that I'm doing something else in order to take that in. And since the things that I'm going to study have a value to them, I have to be willing to trade that value for the thing that I want. Everything in life costs money. Money is nothing more than a tool. And this is one of the big reasons why so many people don't succeed. They don't understand that it's a tool. They don't understand that there's an abundance of it. They don't understand the skill set of bringing it in their life whenever they need it or whenever they want it. And everybody has the ability to learn that skill. And it's not difficult. Children can learn the skill. But what they do is they see it as some kind of a demon in their life that they're afraid of, that they're intimidated by, that other people have control over, and that they don't. But everybody has enough to start right where they are. You have to be willing to spend money of some sort to buy the information that you need to go to the next level, or you're never going to get it. And I started doing this 30 years ago. Now, when I started doing this, there were a lot of other people that I was around because I started choosing the groups of people that I were hanging with that were doing the same thing. And I watched them drop like flies when it got to this second part, the money, spending the money to get the valuable information to move to the next level. They were filled with excuses. They were filled with reasons. They were filled with procrastination. And they just stopped. Instead of going, okay, if this is something that I need to do to be able to get there, I need to learn how to do it, okay? We teach people how to do that because we ask you for money, right? I don't do this for free. I do this to help you because somebody helped me, and it costs money to do it. If that's too much of a trigger for you, you'll stop right where you are and nothing will ever change. Many of those people that I met 30 years ago that got triggered by that idea, right? They let the superstitious beliefs, right? And they are all superstition about spending money overcome their desire to move forward, and they were out before they even got started. I did not have the money to start my direction in life. I had to find it. I had to work for it. I had to get it. I had to use credit. Nobody funded my education. Remember, I was a high school dropout, so I'm self-taught. I had to learn everything myself. I had to find who had the information. I had to be willing to pay whatever they asked, and I did, and I continue to do that today in order to get the information and learn how to move forward. So the two big excuses that stop people before anything else, number one, responsibility. Number two, the money. In their mind, they've got all the reasons and the excuses they can't pay for it. But I'm going to challenge you, okay? Because frankly, I think that idea is complete bullshit. And I know because I was the biggest bullshitter around it than I have anybody that I knew. Here's the truth. You always, always, always find the money for the things that you really want in life. You always do, and you know that you do. The key is, do you want this more than you want your illusion of safety or comfort or superstition or rejection from people that are seeing you succeed? Only you can ask those questions. You're the only one that can do it. But I will tell you now, if you're not willing to accept those things and change those excuses to something that you can do, you will stay stuck. And it's not just stuck, because the world is constantly changing, moving forward. If you don't keep up with it, you fall to the wayside. That's a law. That's an absolute law of life. Now you can think to yourself, it's not fair and I don't like it or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's a consequence that billions of people succumb to because they refuse to change the beliefs that actually hold them back. So what I would like you to do, the exercise for today, is to start with those two excuses. Now, if you say, you know what, David, I am willing to take responsibility and I'm willing to find the money to do whatever it is that's necessary, right? Because the truth is, if you're going to build a business, how much you spend on you and the business and employees and all that increases. I heard this person say something one time. It's like, if you can't take a dime out of a dollar and put it towards something that's going to move you forward, how are you ever going to take 100,000 out of 1,000,000 to be able to move yourself forward? Because the more success you have, the more information you have to learn to go. But one of the first things that we teach, because we know that that's an issue, is we teach people the skill of earning money. We teach them the skill, and it is a skill that anybody can learn. I've taught it to children. I taught it to my children when they were little. It is a skill that we can all learn, and it's an absolute skill that we must learn if we're going to be in command of the money that we have in our life. If you really want to be wealthy, you have to learn how to earn money, because to bring it into your life whenever you want. The reason is because if you don't, everybody else, and just think about this, you'll see that it's true. Everybody else is in charge of your money. If you don't learn how to earn it yourself, everybody else is in charge of your money. Where you spend it, how much you make, whether somebody gives you a raise or not, what you do for a living, the things that you actually spend it on, your limited ability to bless others with money because you're on a limited ability to bless yourself with the money. I don't think God determined us to live that way. We are supposed to live an abundant life, and we're supposed to be abundant and share that abundance with others in a way that makes a difference. Not in charity, but in a way that actually lifts people up so that they can do the same themselves. If you're willing to do those two things, we are on a major path to you having the success and the business of your dreams. I'll see you in episode number 3.